You know, we have this peculiar habit of believing that we are looking out at the world. But did you ever stop to wonder who's doing the looking? Now imagine a mirror. A perfect mirror has no color, no shape, no agenda. It doesn't try to reflect, doesn't try not to reflect, it simply does. And in the same way, the world you see out there is a reflection not of what is, but of what you are. Not what you think you are, oh no. Not that polite little ego in a skin bag. But what you actually are, the whole works. The cosmos waking up and saying, so this is what I look like when I'm me. You see, it's quite funny, people imagine they are in the universe, like marbles in a box. But it's more like the universe is in them, poured through a nervous system and interpreted through a lens called eye. And just as your eyes cannot see themselves and teeth cannot bite themselves, you cannot see you. You can only see the reflections, the glint in another's eye, the twist of circumstance, the heartbreak, the laughter, the traffic jam, the falling leaf for you. So then, the question is not whether the world reflects you, but whether you're willing to see yourself in it. Because if the mirror is cracked, you call the world broken. But if the mirror is clear, suddenly everything is shimmering, dancing, absurd, divine. So, what is the world? Only your own face wearing 10,000 masks. And if you smile, it just might smile back. Now, let's be clear. You don't see reality. You evoke it. That is what you call the real world, hard, objective. Over there is nothing more than a grand conversation between you and what is. Not a thing, but a dance. Not a noun, but a verb. You see, a rock is not hard unless there's a hand to touch it. And the sun is not light unless there's an eye to behold it. Without skin, fire is not hot. Without ears, thunder makes no sound. So then, hardness, heat, brightness, and noise, all the qualities you take for granted as being out there, are actually the echo of your own structure. In other words, you create the sun, you create the rain, you create the distance between your chair and the moon, because without you, there's no far or near, no up or down, no color, no time. It's all relationship. And when you begin to notice this, really notice it, the world gets, slippery. Because you can no longer say, I'm just observing. You're participating. You're part of the paint in the painting. You see, there isn't a world happening to you. There is only a world happening with you. A world that rises to meet the shape of your mind. So when you gaze out at the mountains, the cities, the clouds, the mess, the miracle, you're not just seeing the world, you're seeing your relationship to it. And so, if what you see is always cruel, always grey, always lacking, you must ask, is it the world that's dull? Or is it simply the way the mirror has been tilted? So here we are, you the observer, the one inside, peering out through these curious little holes in your face, called eyes, watching the world go by like scenery outside a train window. But here's the twist. You are not watching the show, you are the show watching itself. The separation between subject and object, knower and known, is a marvelous illusion, one that lets the cosmic dance feel like a duet, when it's really a solo wearing two masks. And if you try to find where the observer ends and the observed begins, well, you can't. They arise together, like a front and a back, like inhale and exhale. Can you have one without the other? You see, when you look at a whirlpool in a river, you might say, there's a thing. But the next day, you come back and it's not the same whirlpool, because there was no whirlpool. Only whirlpooling. So in the same way, you are not a thing. You are a process. A dancing of the universe at one tiny point, where it decided, I shall look at myself, right here, through this being. And that being, quite mistakenly, began to think of itself as an island, But, my dear fellow, there are no islands, only coastlines in motion, only the sea in curious shapes. Now let's talk about mirrors. A mirror, you'll notice, is a strange thing. It shows you everything, yet it has no image of its own. It receives but does not cling, reflects but does not judge. It doesn't say, I like that face, but not this one. It doesn't try to change your hair. It doesn't hold on to yesterday's image or anticipate tomorrow's smile. It is simply clear. And so it is with the mind when it is not clinging, not grasping, not editing experience to suit its little story of me. The Taoist sages said the highest human uses his mind as a mirror. It grasps nothing. It refuses nothing. It receives but does not keep. When the wild geese fly over the lake, their reflection appears in the water. But the geese do not intend to cast a reflection, and the water has no mind to retain their image. Now that is freedom. But we, you see, we tend to treat the mind not as a mirror, but as a scrapbook. Snapping photos, clinging to wounds, comparing, editing, deleting, as if life were a story we're trying to get right instead of a song we forgot we were singing. But what if you stopped? What if you allowed the moment to pass through you like light through glass? What if you let go of the need to comment, to control, to correct? Then the mind becomes like a mirror again. And in that still, silent surface, you might finally see the one who was always there, not watching life, but being it. Funny thing about looking, the more earnestly you try to find yourself, the more you seem to disappear. Just try. Try to grasp who you are. Not your name, not your profession, not your thoughts or your opinions. Those are like clothes on a hanger. What happens if you go behind the mask? Deeper. Beneath the bones, under the breath, behind the watcher of your thoughts, there's no one there, is there? And yet something is. It watches without comment. It feels but doesn't flinch. It is there when you are 5 and still there when you're 50. But it has no age, no face, no voice. It just is. You say, I think. But can you find the thinker? You say, I feel. But where is the feeler? The more you look, the more you see that the one searching is also the thing being searched for, like trying to bite your own teeth. And this isn't a failure, it's the very joke. The divine prank. The universe pretending not to know itself so it can play at finding out. The self is not a thing inside a body, peering out. The body is the world folding in, and what you call I is simply how it feels to be that fold. So you see, it isn't that you are in the universe. You are what the universe is doing, right here, right now, in this peculiar shape. There's something quite extraordinary about silence. Not the absence of noise, but the silence that's humming inside every sound. The silence that isn't empty, but so full it spills into form. Like the mirror that reflects all things, yet remains untouched. Like space holding stars, music, bones, laughter, but never clinging. That silence is not separate from you. It's not something you enter. It's what remains when the commentary stops, when the mind forgets to name, and the world forgets to explain. And suddenly, there it is. Not peace as an achievement, not stillness as an effort, but a kind of listening that listens to nothing and everything at once. When they asked Vimalakirti to define the void, he didn't write a poem. He didn't offer a theory. He said, nothing. And in that nothing, the room thundered, because silence isn't the opposite of speech. It's the source of it. The mother of all words, the womb of all worlds, and when you touch it not with your hands, not with your mind, but with your whole being, you realize something odd. You don't need to fix the noise. You don't need to escape the chaos. You don't need to quiet your thoughts. You just stop fighting. And, like mist on a warm morning, it all dissolves, leaving not answers, not doctrines, but this strange echoing presence that has no name, because it never needed one. If you sit very still and just look not at any particular thing, but just look, you'll start to notice that there's no edge between you and what you see. At first it all seems very obvious. There's the world, and here you are. You, the observer, the looker, the thinker, the feeler. That old familiar sensation of being in here somewhere, peeking out through the eyes. But the more clearly you observe, the more this boundary begins to blur. It's not that the world disappears. Rather, it begins to echo you. And you might notice something gently startling. Everything changes depending on the mood in which you meet it. When you're tense, the trees look jagged. When you're at ease, even the cracks in the pavement have charm. You walk into a room expecting coldness and find coldness waiting. You expect resistance and somehow everything resists. This isn't mysticism or magic. It's participation, relationship. There's no such thing as a reflection without a surface to reflect it. No such thing as a smile in the mirror, unless there's a smile in the face that stands before it. And so, if what you see is always bitter, always broken, always lacking, the mirror is doing nothing more than showing you your own face. Of course, it doesn't hold the image, it doesn't judge, it doesn't edit. It simply reflects perfectly, precisely, instantly. You say, but I want the world to love me. Well, start the echo, because the mirror is not out there. It's here, it's everywhere, and it's waiting. No effort required, no technique, no trick. The geese fly across the lake and cast their reflection in the still water. The water doesn't plan to hold their image. The geese don't try to leave it behind. This is how it works. Everything moves. Everything reflects. Nothing clings. It is only when we begin grasping, insisting, demanding that the surface distorts. To be at peace with the mirror is to no longer require it to flatter, to no longer beg it to change. And when that happens, when there's no need for performance, you might catch just briefly the glimpse of something very quiet looking back. Not a voice, not a thought, not even a person, just presence. That is you. Not the you usually talk about, not the name, not the role, not the one who signs documents and rehearses arguments. Something deeper. The same awareness that was there before the name was learned, before the story began, before anyone told you who you were supposed to be. It's been there the whole time, silent, unmoving, unconcerned, watching the whole thing unfold like a dream. It has no opinion, it has no ambition, it simply is. And it cannot be seen because it is the seeing. It cannot be grasped because it is what grasps. It is what the Upanishads called Tattivam Asi, thou art that. The universe, all of it rises in you as sound rises in a bell, as light appears in the eye. You do not live in the world happens in you. When the wave knows it is the ocean, it does not fear crashing. When the dancer knows they are the dance, there is no need for applause. And when you remember not as a belief, but as a knowing beneath knowing that you were never outside this, never separate, never lacking, then the whole game becomes beautifully transparent. The music continues, the shapes change, the story evolves, but the silence beneath the music, the stillness within the motion, remains unchanged. That stillness is not a void to be feared. It is fullness. It is the mirror with no dust, the sky with no clouds, the awareness with no face. And if from time to time you forget, as forgetting is part of remembering, the mirror will still be there, reflecting. Because the face it shows was never missing, and the one who's been looking all along was simply the looking itself.